Good morning, everybody. It's Rita Smith, the #1 food fairy, and I'm here today with the most fun new recipe that I have tried in ages. I just loved the way it came out, and I amended it a little bit. I did a Lydia DiFrancesco job on it to take out some of the sugar and some of the fat, and it turned out perfect. This is a carrot maple souffle in ginger crust. The original recipe came from Foodland Ontario. They call it a carrot maple souffle and ginger crust. It's not actually a souffle. It's more like a vegetable terrine or a mousse, because you're using unflavored gelatin. There's no eggs and you don't bake it, so it's not really a souffle. But anyway, that's what they call it. Their recipe is more like a sweet dessert recipe. It has a huge amount of maple syrup in it. It calls for 3 cups of ice cream, and the crust is crumbled ginger cookies. I had a look at this recipe and I thought, oh, I could make that more like a vegetable dish. I replaced the ginger cookie crust with breadcrumbs. I replaced the ice cream with very thick Greek yogurt. And certainly we're going to reduce the amount of sugar. There's no need for 3/4 of a cup of maple syrup. I'm going to add a little bit of brown sugar if I feel it needs it. If I don't think it needs it, I'm not going to add any. And I did want to point out that you don't have to have any crust on this at all. You could make the mousse, the carrot ginger mousse, and just put it into a serving cup, a portion cup, and chill it and eat it that way. You don't have to put it into a crust. I like the crust, however, I have to say. It was kind of enjoyable. Their recipe calls for pecan or walnut halves, and if I had those, I'd use them. But in my cupboard, I had some spiced peanuts, some roasted spiced peanuts, and so I chopped those up, and they were perfect. They were perfect on this mousse, this terrine, this carrot terrine. So that's what I used, and I'm going to use that again this time because I liked it so much. Now the recipe calls for 2 cups of cooked carrots, and I did boil the carrots. But what I wanted to let you know also is that because I'm not using a ginger cookie crust, I simply peeled and boiled with the carrots some chopped up ginger, which gives a great flavor to everything. And when I mash the carrots, I'm going to mash the ginger as well. And so the basis of this pie filling, or this mousse filling, will be mashed carrots. There will also be ginger in the carrots. I'll add a little bit of sweetness if I think it's necessary. I'll put in the gelatin as the recipe calls for. That's what sets it. And instead of folding in 3 cups of ice cream, I'm going to fold in very thick, low-fat Greek yogurt, which it was perfect. It's delicious. And then I'll top it with some of the barbecued nuts or the roasted nuts. So that's how I'm going to go about this, more like a vegetable than as a dessert. And if you wanted to make it without the crust, you certainly could just make individual portions, or you know, a whole pie of the mousse without the crust. But I like the crust, so I'll do it both ways if I have enough filling. And we'll come back in a second, and I'll show you exactly how I do that. So I'll just let you know as I start, I'm doubling this recipe because I want to make far more than 1 carrot mousse. I think I'll actually go for 3. I've got 3 pie tins that I could use. So I've doubled the recipe, but what the recipe actually calls for is 1.5 cups of crumbs. I'm using breadcrumbs, and a 1/2 cup of butter. So since I've doubled everything, 1/4 cup of butter. Since I've doubled everything, I'm using 2.5 cups of crumbs and a 1/2 cup of butter. There's kind of no way around that, but it's going to be split between 3 pies, or 3 mousse, so that's 1 stick of butter, in case you're measuring. I melted that ahead of time, and I'm just going to turn the butter and the crumbs until they're pretty well evenly coated, and then I'm going to press them gently in the bottom of a pie tin. I have a glass pie plate and 2 foil ones, so I'll see if I can get 3 pies out of this. And then they bake in the oven for 6 minutes, 6 short minutes. So I'm going to set the timer, because if you walk away and forget them, you might end up with burned crumbs, and you wouldn't want that. So, okay, it smells really good already, and I am going to then put them into the pie shells. Okay, here we go. Okay, so I'm going to start off with my glass pie plate, and I'll put 1/3, or maybe a little bit more than 1/3, into the plate, and then you just gently pat it, really. You don't want to push it in. You don't want to break the crumbs. I'm using the nice panko breadcrumbs, so they're kind of big to start off with. And it's nice if the crumbs climb a little bit along the edge. I could put maybe a tiny bit more in the middle and around the edge. Okay. Oh, God. There's nothing like the way melted butter smells. Okay, so I think that's enough for pie plate number 1. Hopefully I'll do a good job of pairing up the amount of the filling that I have with the amount of the pans that I have. Okay, so I'm going to empty those and just pat them down. I love foil pans because when you put them in the freezer, you don't notice that they're missing like I do when I use my real glass or Corelle or something that I actually cook with. If it's in the freezer, I miss it and go to cook with it and it's not there. But not only can you toss these into the freezer, but if you give something away as a gift, you don't care if you ever see it again. You just put it in a foil pan and give it to somebody and say, here's a carrot mousse, and enjoy it. And then you don't have to worry about tracking down pans. So I'm a big believer in foil pans. Okay, so I've got 3. The crust does not need to go all the way up the side. It just basically provides a bottom for the mousse. And it's not like a pie crust where you want it to come all the way up the side and be lovely. It's just going to provide like a little bit of a footprint to put the carrot mousse into. I'm going to put these in the oven now at 350 degrees for 6 short minutes. Okay, I had a run at this with my hand mixer. It did not work, so I am going to the KitchenAid stick blender. Carrots are harder to mash than potatoes. Okay, that's good. It's a little bit slow to do it one batch at a time, but this is my second go around at this recipe, and I'm finding this is the only way to do it. So I will transfer the mashed carrots and do the next batch. It'll take about 2 minutes. It's no big deal. It's no big deal. You want them to be as mashed and smooth and fluffy as you can get them, because that is what actually makes the fluffiness of the pie. So I'll keep doing this in batches. Oh, there's my crustar done. I'll keep doing this in batches until I'm done, and then I will come back and let you know what's up next. Okay, so the carrots and the ginger are very nicely mashed using my stick blender. If I was gonna do it again using a hand mixer, I would mash it with a potato masher first, just to break the carrots down into smaller pieces, and I think you could do it with a hand mixer. But I used my stick blender, which I love, and it made it very nice and fluffy. I'm now going to heat the water and the sugar and put the gelatin in it, and then we'll mix all this together with the yogurt, and that will be our filling for our mousse, and we'll come back to that in a second. So here are the spiced dry roasted peanuts that I'm going to use to top the mousses, the mousse, I think is plural of mousse, the terrain, the vegetable terrains. I'm just going to chop them a little bit less than whole, not ground by any means, but just something smaller than whole nuts. And that is what we're going to sprinkle on top of the mousse when they are ready. Okay, so we are at the stove. I'm going to prepare the gelatin portion of the mixture that gets stirred in with the carrots and the yogurt. The recipe calls for water. This is a tip from my mom, God rest her soul. I use the water I cook the carrots and the ginger in because there's carrot and ginger flavor in the water. So why use plain water when I could use carroty ginger water? So that's what I'm going to do. The recipe says to sprinkle the gelatin into the water, so I'm going to do that and let it set for 1 minute. And since I'm doubling the recipe, I'm going to use 2 envelopes of water. I'm going to let it set for 1 minute. Jeez, oh Pete. Let it set for 1 minute. I'll set my timer actually so I don't misjudge. And then I'm going to start to heat it and add 1/3 of a cup of brown sugar. Okay, so I will let it set for 1 minute, come back and add water and heat it to a boil. Okay, my buzzer went off and that has been sitting for a minute. I'm going to give it a stir. Oh wow, gelatin. Hey, it really thickens things. I'm going to give it a stir. And I'm not using maple syrup, 3/4 of a cup of maple syrup. I'm using 1/3 of a cup of brown sugar. I did taste the carrot mixture and it could use a little tiny bit of sweet, a tiny bit. So I am going to heat this to a boil, as I did when I used maple syrup. It'll probably take a little bit longer. We want to make sure that the brown sugar dissolves. But just a tiny bit of sweet to the recipe, which you do not need to add. If you don't want sugar in your recipe, don't add it. It's not essential. It's not going to make the recipe set or anything. It's the gelatin that does that. So if you want an absolutely no extra carbohydrate recipe, don't add any sugar. Just go with the carrots and the gelatin. So, but I'm going to bring this to a boil, and that's going to get poured into the carrot mixture with the yogurt, and then we are going to pour it into the shells and let it chill in the fridge. Oh my God, it's going to be so good. Okay, so we'll come back when this is boiling. So here is my water, my liquid, my unflavored gelatin, Knox unflavored gelatin, and a little bit of brown sugar coming to a boil. I'm going to take it off the stove and go add it to the carrots. Stir it around until it's cooled a bit, and then I'm going to add the yogurt to the carrot mixture. And we're going to call that a mousse. It's going to be awesome. Alrighty, here's my mashed carrots and ginger, my water, gelatin, and brown sugar, which is dispensable if you don't want to use brown sugar. I'm going to stir that up and let it cool a little bit, because I don't want to curdle or melt the yogurt when it gets in there. I don't want it to get too liquidy. So I'm going to let this cool just for a second or two. I'm also going to taste it. I'm going to taste it to make sure. I salted the carrots, but does it have enough salt? Yeah, ginger's good, carrots are good. Not too sweet, not too sweet. That 1/3 of a cup of brown sugar is going to sweeten three mousse or 3 trains, so I don't feel too guilty about that. It's only a couple of tablespoons per pie, but you could leave that out altogether. Okay, it's cooling nicely now, so I'm going to fold in the yogurt. And this is a 750 milliliter container of Liberte, the really thick kind, you know. This is a really nice addition to the market. They also make a vanilla flavor, so if you wanted a little bit of vanilla flavor in your carrot pie to go with the ginger, you could do that. I just bought plain. Okay, so that's pretty good and empty. So now I'm gonna fold that in. It'll look really liquidy while I'm making this, but because of the Knox gelatin, the unflavored gelatin, as it cools, it becomes quite thick. Like you can cut it with a fork and eat it like a quiche or something. So I'm gonna stir this until it is nicely blended, and then I'm gonna pour it into my pre-baked breadcrumb shells. Okay, so we're back with our pre-baked breadcrumb shell. And also, if you don't want a shell, you can just put it in a little portion cup and chill it like that. Like, that's fine. Okay, you can do that. But what I'm going to do is I am going to add the mousse filling to the breadcrumb crust, pre-baked for 6 minutes only in the oven. Okay, that's enough. That'll make a nice slice when I cut it. Okay, I'll get it all the way to the edges. And then I will just top it with some of the nuts that we chopped up. They add a nice texture and a nice flavor. I like the spice nuts. I like the seasoned nuts. So they add like a nice little bite, a nice little crunch to the terrain. And then this is going to go in the fridge to get chilled. And when I slice it, it comes out, you know, solid, like a thing you can eat with a fork. It's nice and cool and delicious and nutritious between the carrots and the ginger, which is good for you on every level. I don't know if you read all the health stuff I read on the internet, ginger is like a major miracle food. But between the yogurt, which is as low fat as we can get it and nice and thick protein, the carrots, which are carrots, they're good for your eyes and they're good for the rest of you, vitamin A, iron, the whole thing, the ginger, and some nuts on top for extra protein. That's like a fantastic little snack. A slice of that is so satisfying and rewarding and also nutritious. And if you don't want the bread crumb crust, then just put it in portion cups and eat it like a mousse. I'm going to fill the other 2 pans and we'll be back in a second. So here we are at the end of the process. Isn't this the bomb? We replaced ice cream with yogurt. We replaced ginger cookie crust with breadcrumbs, and you don't even need to use those if you don't want to. We have replaced 3/4 of a cup of maple syrup with a little bit of brown sugar, and you don't need to use that if you don't want to. I don't generally eat pie. I don't generally eat ice cream, but when I have this as a vegetable, carrots and ginger and yogurt, it almost feels like I'm eating a dessert, but I'm not. So have a run at this. It's really a lot of fun. It looks like a lot of work. It's about 15 minutes really from beginning to end, maybe 20 minutes. And you can make enough of this to put in your fridge, which is what I'm going to do with this one, or your freezer for weeks out, and have a really nice vegetable, protein, yogurt dish that feels like you're having a dessert when in fact you're actually eating vegetables and yogurt. So, and it's delicious, and it's really fun to make and really fun to eat. I hope you enjoy it. It's Rita Smith, #1 Food Fairy, signing off. Be confident in the kitchen. Change recipes if you think you can do better. I'm glad I changed this one. Have fun cooking for your family. Take care. Bye-bye.
I'm so sick of reality TV. I'm so tired of my girlfriend ignoring me. I sure could use a little bit of company, some time away from all the wannabe celebrities.